One of the things that LinkedIn asked us to do as Kantar Vermeer is to underpin this discussion with some data. And I don't know if you've been exposed to any of these studies, but as we look at these changes, the question really comes at a leadership level of what does it take to win? And I wanted to at least give you some hard stats on what we've seen different, both in marketing leaders and in agency leaders. There's a lot of agency leaders in the room as well. And I'm going to tap into a number of studies that we've done. Marketing 2020 was mentioned. Insights 2020, as I said, is going to be published next month, basically the month after next in HBR. And then Agency 2020 got a lot less publicity, but actually really did shake up quite a few vicious discussions in the agency world, and they are very much ongoing. Let's just tap into that. In Insights 2020, which looked at how do you drive customer centricity. No one would argue, it's the buzzword of today, customer centricity, whether it's consumer immersions, washing some woman's husband's underwear in India, or it's actually about a network trying to organize itself around one very, very big client. The whole concept of customer centricity, I've not met one person in my life that says that that's not important. The question is, how do you do it when you have such a large organization? And basically what came out of Insights 2020, which worked as follows. All of these studies have the same principle. We look at the companies that are outperforming their competitors. It's a very simple question. We've validated that people actually say this. These are all quant studies, more than 10,000 respondents in whatever field we're looking at. And then we compare how the leaders of successful, it's revenue growth we look at, companies, answer the questions differently to the leaders of companies that are underperforming. So whenever I show you stats moving forward, it's about overperformers versus underperformers. That's the legal term. I like to say winners and losers. They cluster basically in three main lenses. One is around the total experience, and it's actually a lot about purpose, but I'm not going to go into that in too much detail now. The other is around how do you internally drive that customer obsession. And that's a lot about change management. All of us lead big, matrix, complex, global organizations. What does it take to unlock that? And finally, what's the insights engine that you need inside your organization to fuel that, to lead it, to champion it? And that's all around customer-centric growth. I'm just going to pull out some stats that I thought were interesting for this discussion. The first, and it really, I think Sir Martin hit it on the head with that media discussion. I know nothing about media, but I do know as a marketer that once people start talking about pricing, it means that you've got some form of commoditization. What I think as a marketer is the most interesting, and that's why the Microsoft LinkedIn partnership is so interesting. What I think in our future there's going to be, who doesn't work in a category, whether it's chocolate or soap powder, that isn't commoditizing at a great extent. It's going to be the combination of the functional benefits and of course the emotional benefits with personalization, with a high degree of, but this is the right product for you as follows. And we do that because we know where you live or we know what kind of lifestyle you have. And so the combining of products and data-driven customization is a huge factor. Now, if you look at this stat, what this says is that 73% of the overperforming leaders, in other words, these are successful companies, said that they indeed were creating solutions based on insights that were customized. They're leveraging the data to make a better value proposition. Whereas only 31% of the underperforming companies said that. The example is a great one. Allstate has this thing that you can pop into your car, and it monitors how you drive. And based on that, they offer you a new premium plan. Makes total sense. If you speed, your fees go up. If you are a very safe driver. Now in the UK, someone has taken this to a whole next level, and they actually have a GPS component inserted in this thing, and they actually look at your daily route. And people get letters saying, you take Holloway High Road every day, that happens to be extremely accident prone. If you take this route, much less chance of an accident. And by the way, if you do, your policy goes down. We're going down a very slippery slope of big brothers watching you and customization, but it's happening. Overperformers are making this important to drive customer centricity. Now that's on the, if you like, product or solution side. But I wanted to talk more about the, what does it take internally? One is just the fact that people own it. If you have somebody that owns customer centricity on their business card, you're in trouble. It's like having a digital department. You know that's wrong. But these are a lot of companies that have somebody that's responsible for customer experience, and it's not the CEO. There's a lot of companies. What we see is that in overperforming, 80% of the overperformers said, we all own customer centricity, whereas only 13% of the underperformers did. Big, big difference. And in the behaviors, and I'm going to talk quite a lot about the leadership behaviors and just the sort of corporate among ourselves behaviors, you see that collaboration to get across those silos, to get consistency across touch points, is a crucial factor. So not just working among ourselves, but also working with the partners and actually consumers. Saying, co-developing, another big point in terms of, it takes a lot to open the doors and say, look, we haven't got all the answers. Can we collaborate? That takes a mindset of opening up. It takes a mindset of experimentation. And again, this is one of those themes, I don't think anybody would argue that it's important, but one of the CMO interviews I did, I thought it was very insightful. The CMO said, look, everybody agrees that experimentation is important. You have to ask the question, do you budget for it? And actually, I want to give a compliment to our partner in Insights 2020, LinkedIn, because when we came with the idea of the Insights 2020 study, we spoke to somebody several levels down from the CEO. It's a very significant study. It's a big investment in people and in money, in time. And one of my partners took her through the whole program plan, and she said, brilliant, let's do it. And he said, oh, good, okay, so who do we talk to next to get the leadership commitment and so? She said, no, I just told you, let's do it. And it took sort of a 3 or 4 times up and down before he realized that this woman, who's not in the top of the company, was empowered to take a decision of that scale because LinkedIn actually does have it in their personal evaluation criteria, whether you demonstrate experimentation on behalf of the company. Again, it's a trait that we all talk about. What you see here, it's still less than half, but it's almost 3 times as large as the underperformers, the embracing risk of performance. Now, the risk needs to be informed. So this gets to the, what's actually the role and the position of insights in a company? How insight-led are these companies? And it starts with, well, who leads insights and where does insight report? Does it report to the CMO? Does it report into a chief customer officer? Does it report into the CEO? We're seeing a dramatic shift. Look, it's only 30% of the companies that were overperforming have insights and analytics reporting directly into the CEO. The example here is Harish Bhatt, who used to run insights and analytics and is now head of strategy and the number 3 in Tata after the 2 Tata brothers. He runs and ensures that in every strategic discussion, it's informed by insights and analytics. In Unilever, Stan, I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, reports to Keith, but actually, at every board meeting, he's there as well, because they don't have strategy discussions with insights and analytics at the table. Ask yourself if that's true in your organization. And the type of people it then takes in insights and analytics to drive that type of embracing the business, partnering with the business, inspiring the business with those insights, that's a different type of insights person too. What we see is that in overperforming organizations, they have much stronger business sense, much stronger combining the magic and the logic, the what if from the data, rather than that this is what it says, and a real sense of storytelling. Because if you can't engage and you can't bring it alive, then you might as well not have the data. It's going to stick on a piece of file, in a file somewhere where people aren't being informed their business discussions. Critical capabilities that we see among leaders. Now, I mentioned Agency 2020 briefly, and because there are quite a few agency people here, we're going to get to the CMO traits with my partner from Korn Ferry, Richard, here. But I wanted to just briefly touch upon the agency traits of overperformance that we saw. And the first thing I'd say is that collaboration, not just between departments in the agency, but between different agencies, because clients are going to more and more agencies, overperformers make this more important. They do it more within the agencies, as you can see. Secondly, they have become far more responsive. We literally asked at a strategy level, at a structure level, and at your capability level, how aggressively are you reacting to the changes in markets? And on every one of them, as you can see, overperforming agencies were dramatically more responsive than underperforming agencies. And the thing that so often falls short in the agencies is training. So whereas you would join a Unilever as an intern from school almost, and you get taken through the machine, and that's true for a PepsiCo or for a General Foods in the past, or of course Procter & Gamble, that now within the agency world is a real challenge. What we see is that there isn't enough training. It's just come on board, and I was talking to an agency person yesterday who really reflected back and said, this is a huge opportunity for us. We see that overperformers train significantly more. To give you an idea of how dramatically more, we had a gathering of the heads of marketing training in New York about, 3-4 weeks ago. It was literally the head of marketing training from Coke, from Procter, from Unilever. You can keep going, the top 20 companies in the world. And what Marketing 2020 showed is that overperformers train 3 days or more. At Unilever, the average is actually 6 days or more. Within agencies, I don't have the hard number, but it was dramatically below that. Dedicated days of training. And as Keith mentioned, we have not revised this or rehearsed this. It starts with you, the leaders. Leading by example. Just a simple question as, are agencies' senior management sufficiently understand social media and digital? As you can see, within overperforming agencies, that's dramatically more the case than in underperforming. My only point being, yes, we have a lot of hippos here. But we have to walk the talk. You don't have to be good at it. You don't have to lead by example by being the sort of model student of how things work. That's not expected. But you're expected to be seen to be trying. And that's learning organizations. And that's a behavior we can all start here with. And I love the fact that companies are making it mandatory at the very top. We run programs, reverse mentoring programs, but also top-down programs where we're really taking that lost generation through that. Because if you don't personally engage, you're just going to disconnect from the decisions you're supposed to be taking. Now that's at an agency level. I wanted to just turn it to the CMO now. And Richard and Korn Ferry were a very significant partner in the Insights 2020 work. And Richard's just going to highlight some of the things that we saw differently among overperforming CMOs in successful companies. Richard.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, Korn Ferry, for those of you who don't know, is the largest executive recruitment firm in the world. So, as the leader of the CMO practice in Europe, I spend my life dealing with people who are wrestling with the conundrum of customer centricity. And what we've done is to actually assess a number of leaders from the top 250 customer-centric companies in the world. I'm not going to bore you with the algorithm that we used in order to create that, but it was based on winners and losers. Korn Ferry sits on assessment data for 234 of the marketing leaders from those organizations. We were able to assess their leadership competencies against a norm group across marketing leaders in other organizations. And I think what we were trying to do was analyze what were the sorts of differences of marketing leaders in customer-centric companies. Given that I'm actually standing here, it probably won't surprise you that there were some key differentiators that we could see. You're not going to be able to read all of those graphs, but ultimately it fell into 3 buckets. Building the right team, working across organizational silos, and creating a customer-centric revenue strategy. And I'm not going to go focus on every single one, but I just want to pick out 3 competencies that we see as big differentiators and actually hugely scarce in the market. Number 1 is building talent. I think as Keith talked about, building talent is something that we all talk about as being really easy. It's something that people don't spend enough time on. It's something that people don't focus on enough. And also, building a culture of collaboration and innovation is also a challenge. Secondly, inspiring trust. We talked a lot about purpose, driving trust through an organization, driving purpose, making it meaningful to the organization, making it meaningful that people buy into it across the whole organization, and not just empty speeches and rhetoric, is something that's, again, incredibly rare in the marketplace. And last of all, using insightful judgment. This isn't about finding the killer business or consumer insight. It's about developing a customer-centric revenue strategy that understands where your organization is on its journey towards customer centricity. Actually understanding the pace of change that's required. So you move fast enough, but also at a pace which the organization doesn't spit you back out again. Now, I saw a note on our table there about how we're all about to be replaced by robots in the near future. I also saw it on the EY, but I think this proves as well that until we are replaced by robots, it's still about people. Mark.
Thank you. You know, I just wanted to end on a personal note, personal for me and personal for you, before I hand back to Penry. As we sit here and as we come to Cannes, I mean, I don't know about you, but I always have a sort of mixed half guilt because look out the window, it's not exactly painful to come to the south of France. At the same time, I'm actually learning a lot. In fact, I don't know about you, but when I look at my program and I walk up the stairs, I was mentioning that I was looking at those posters, I'm not seeing probably I'm not seeing 20% of the sessions I should be at. I think we are living in probably the most exciting time ever for marketers and insights and analytics individuals, leaders. For the first time since a long time, we're moving from the functional benefits and the innovations. Sure, if you have a better widget, you will still win. But that's more and more rare. We're going to win the battle for preference with value in a broader sense. A value that's built on an understanding of what the new categories are, how the path to purchase, the path to consideration is, and how, in some very strange way, Skype is suddenly a main competitor to another client of mine, Verizon. We have to all force ourselves. It's a painful fact to admit, but when I started at Unilever, I won't even say how many years ago, I, at one point, was responsible for ketchup for barbecues. Barbecue sauce was the category. And we had Nielsen read back our market shares on a monthly basis, and the definition of the category was ketchup in plastic bottles that stand on their head. Now, we were the only manufacturer that could make ketchup bottles that stood on their head. So guess what my market share was? But this is what we do to ourselves. So one, forcing ourselves to step away from the comfort of whatever definition we've created of the world we operate in, the world we add value on, and to actually force ourselves with customer centricity to say, no, we have a whole new set of competitors. If you've got a market share above 50, you're redefining your category if you want to grow. It shouldn't be more than 8. 8 or 10%, everybody knows they can increase. Above 50, suddenly the discussion becomes about defense. The opportunities to create value through the technology and the data that now is at our marketers' hands is incredible. It's lazy marketers that are trying to defend the market share above 50. It's the marketer of the future, this is my personal view, that's building market share from 8 to 20 in a completely newly defined category. That's our journey. And literally, when I started at Unilever, my problem was, and it was a real problem, that my boss, my boss's boss, and all the way up to the Unilever chairman, they'd all worked on the bloody margarine that I was responsible for. Now, I hated it because they all told me how to do my job. But there was a comfort in it, because I could ask the question. What I think we honestly have to admit to ourselves, if you look at the new companies that are out there, every day I pass stands and I don't even know what they do. We don't know what the next thing is. We're leading, but we're leading without a roadmap. It's scary, but at the same time, it means we're pioneers. And what all the data says, and that's where I wanted to end at a personal level, is yes, it takes learning organizations. If you don't train, how could you ever expect your people to be making the right decisions? If you don't invest in the types of programs, in the terms of internal communication programs that LinkedIn drives, where people are trying things and then learning from each other, communicating easily across borders and divisions to say this works and this doesn't. If you're not putting that type of mindset, that type of culture and the enablers in place, you're a bad leader. But if you're not personally sticking your neck out and with very great regularity, talking to your people about how you failed while you were trying to learn something new, when you come back from the south of France, you could keep it quiet because you don't want people to know that you were in the south of France, or you could talk about all the things you learned and still don't understand. And I think it's that mindset that we have to be driving, and that's that humbleness of a leader that doesn't quite know what's around the corner that will drive winners. All the data suggests it, and it just feels right here. And with that, I'll end it and hand it back to Benny. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So a couple things to wrap up. First of all, you gave us all a gift by being here today. First of all, I should say the workshop, the moderators at the table, you have the day off. Because of the audible and all the changes and the timing of things, we won't have enough time to do the workshops, which, again, I'm sure the moderators are fairly happy about. But there is a lot of sort of continuing dialogue that we would be happy to have, talk about more of the study, the research, lots of things we've done as sort of follow-up here or as we all go home. So I do want to make sure that's noticed and discussed. But again, I was saying you've given us a gift by being here in Cannes. Everybody's got crazy schedules, and so for an hour and a half, you've given us some attention and time. I was thinking about the gift we gave you, which is, if you listen closely, we're giving a gift right now, which is quiet, which we will not have any more quiet after this session is over. We will be back on the Croisette, running to meetings and chaos. So a little bit of quiet and a little bit of time to reflect on some of these topics of today: customer centricity, the culture, the power of our organizations, the employee bases that we have as being our best brand advocates going forward. All sorts of things, I think, condensed in a very quick amount of time. I think of it as a gift. I was trying to think, how do you wrap up this session? Too many topics to truly wrap up. So hopefully there's a gift there that we've given you back in terms of the time you've given us. And just thankful to Mark and the partners we've had related to the Insights 2020 work, everyone who's sort of organized this session from our team, and again, for all of you guys coming and showing up. And the second gift I will give you is also something that typically never happens this week in Cannes, is we are actually 3 minutes early to allow us to go. So thank you very much for the time and appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again.